Finally, fight nights are back in arenas. Well, at least for now. We'll get to that point in just a second. But Alexander Volkov and Tom Aspinall in the main event this weekend. UFC London, of course, in the O2 Arena, the co-main event. Arnold Allen taking on Dan Hooker. Yes, the Hangman is back at 145. And also, Paddy the Baddy is on this card as well. We've got a very fun card with 13 fights on it, again from the O2 Arena in London, England. And I thought this was going to be the permanent return, of course, to Fight Nights back in arenas, because we're going to be going to Columbus for Daukaus and Blades after this one. But it seems like the UFC has booked the UFC Apex for 3 more fight nights after the Korean Zombie and Alexander Volkanovski go at it in Jacksonville in a couple weeks. So that really sucks, but let's enjoy UFC London this Saturday, of course, from the O2. And I mean, last week's card, I mean, come on, 12-2, something easy, right? I mean, Santos and Valiev, big wins, Song Yadong first round knockout. Actually, that's not huge because we knew Marlon Moraes' shin's gone. It sucks to see, but come on. Khalil Roundtree, second round knockout, got right on the dot. Pretty happy about that. Picked Drew Dober to beat Terrence McKinney. Didn't look like it was going to go that way when that fight started, but Dober came back and he won. And then JJ Aldrich beating, of course, Jillian Robertson. I felt pretty good about that pick at the start of the week. A lot of people going Jillian Robertson. I believe she was closing as the betting favorite, but we went JJ Aldrich, and we went 12-2 on the card. 2 losses were Adalcha Lujanbula. I mean, come on, bro. You got to finish that fight against Cody Brundage. I don't know what he's doing shooting for a takedown right there. And Brundage, of course, sunk in the guillotine right away. And the other fight we got wrong was Chris Moutinho versus Guido Canetti. I got nothing to say about Chris Moutinho. So 12-2 last week. Let's now move on to UFC London. So we start off the card here with Nathaniel Wood taking on Vince Morales. Starting first with Vince Morales, right? So his last win was a huge knockout finish over Luis Smolka, winning that fight in the first round by KO. We picked Smolka to win that fight. Obviously didn't go our way. And before that, for Morales, riding that Smolka win with a win before that over Draco Rodriguez by unanimous decision. It was somewhat of a close fight. I mean, Rodriguez was really going to his wrestling a lot on that fight. Couldn't really secure the takedown all that often in that one, as Morales was able to get back to his feet pretty quickly in that fight. And then before that, for Morales, losing 2 back-to-back fights to Benito Lopez's first outing in 2019, and after that, losing to Chris Gutierrez in a fight where Gutierrez just dominated him throughout the entirety of that fight, knocking down Morales twice, knocking him out in the second round. And then to start his UFC career, Morales went 1-1, losing to Song Yadong, who you just saw knock out Marlon Moraes. And now, I mean, hell, Song Yadong's a real top 8 guy in the weight class. And then Morales beat Ayman Zahabi after that by unanimous decision over in Canada. As for his opponent in Nathaniel Wood, Wood had all this hype heading into the UFC. Like, truly, Nathaniel Wood's hype train was pretty huge. He was the Cage Warriors bantamweight champ. He came into the UFC, subbed Johnny Eduardo. He subbed Andre Ewell. He subbed Jose Alberto Quinones. And then he comes into the fight with John Dodson, where he was winning the fight against Dodson. He was, until he wasn't. He got knocked out by Dobson in the 3rd round and really just stunted his growth in the UFC, per se. And then he came back, he beat John Castaneda. Is Castaneda the best UFC fighter? Not really. And then Wood comes back, he loses to Casey Kenny in a real underrated fight. I mean, it's a stand-up war between these two. They both trade back and forth, but by the time that fight was over, you knew Casey Kenny won 2-1, but it was somewhat of a close fight, and it was a good, fun fight to watch. We haven't seen Wood since. That was all the way back UFC 254 in October. You know, for reference, Khabib Nurmagomedov has fought more recently than Nathaniel Wood has. That's not great to see, but still in this fight with Wood and Morales, if Wood's able to push a pace on Vince Morales, but Morales really can't keep up and can't land a big bomb like he did against Luis Smolka, I think Wood should be able to win. I think he will have the advantage on the ground if he does decide to take the fight down there. As you saw, Wood's first 3 fights in the UFC were all won by submission, Eduardo, Ewell, and Quinones. So if he is able to push a pace on the feet and is able to mix in that occasional takedown, I think that Nathaniel Wood should be able to beat Vince Morales. I think he's going to get it done by decision. Just the all-around game out of Wood should be too much for Morales. Should be a close one, but still, I do like Wood to win this one, closing at -250, I do believe. So yeah, we're going to go with Nathaniel Wood by decision. Next up, we've got Corey McKenna taking on Elise Reed. Been a while since we've seen Corey McKenna, and I was excited for her fight against Emily Whitmire. Not because I thought Whitmire versus McKenna was going to be some fire fight, some fight of the year type fight. No, it's because I thought it was a fight where Corey McKenna could go in there and absolutely dominate Emily Whitmire. Like, Emily Whitmire is not very good, okay? And I think she's got a fight lined up soon, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, no, it got canceled. She's supposed to fight Fury in a couple weeks, but that fight just got canceled. So, never mind, she's not fighting anymore. But still, Emily Whitmire is a fighter who's outside the UFC. She's 4-5 now. I thought it was going to be a good fight for Corey McKenna to just, pick up another one in the UFC. Because her 2 wins so far, actually aren't horrible. I mean, her contender win over Vanessa Demopoulos keeps looking better and better since Demopoulos just beat Silvana Gomez-Juarez in her last fight. McKenna came in that fight, took down Demopoulos, worked well on the ground, outstruck Demopoulos. I mean, it was a dominant performance form. She had like 11 minutes of control time in that fight against Demopoulos. It looks really good now considering Demopoulos just armbarred Gomez Juarez, who was given terrible on the ground, but still, it was a good win for McKenna, and then her last win over Kay Hansen. Now, did she win the fight? Hell no, she didn't. That fight was 2 years ago. It was on Felder and Dos Anjos. She probably lost the fight. I mean, go rewatch it. She lost. I picked Corey McKenna to win, big underdog pick that week, and she ended up cashing with that decision victory. But if you go rewatch it, Kay Hansen's the one pushing the pace. She's outstriking McKenna, and she's taking McKenna down. Kay Hansen probably should have won that fight, but in the record books, it has a win for Corey McKenna. Now, she's taking on an opponent here in Elise Reed, and I think Elise Reed's better than Emily Whitmire, but is she some, world beater? She's not. She's not great. I mean, she lost to Sijara Eubanks in her last fight, and now, Eubanks, again, one of those fighters who, maybe could have been great, but not really. She just lost to Melissa Gatto. And Melissa Gatto now, by the way, 2-0 in the UFC. Watch out for her. But Reed loses to Eubanks in her first fight in the UFC. Couldn't get anything going. Eubanks gets that one down, and then Elise Reed really couldn't do anything, so Eubanks just rained on punches and eventually won the fight. So nothing really Reed could do in that one. It was a short notice fight coming up from CFFC. Of course, she was the former CFFC strawweight champion, losing to Eubanks. It's going to happen to you. This fight with McKenna is interesting because Elise Reed, outside of the UFC, of course, beating Jasmine Jasdavigius in CFFC as well, and Jasdavigius just beat Kay Hansen in her first fight in the UFC over in Anaheim. Again, I think McCann is good, but I don't think she's entirely on this UFC level just yet, just because she's 22 years old. I think she's a fun prospect to keep an eye on, but again, it's just a little bit, I wouldn't say it's too soon because I think she can compete with some of these fighters, but I think she would just benefit by fighting a little bit more in Cage Warriors. That being said, though, against Elise Reed, I think there's a real opportunity for Corey McKenna to win this fight. I think she will win this fight. I just think the boxing out of McKenna, it's not great, but it's enough to close the distance and eventually, work her way into the clinch and bring down Elise Reed. So, I think the game plan is pretty simple here. McKenna's just got to use her boxing and shorten the distance and eventually get a takedown. I think that's what she's going to do. I think she's going to keep Elise Reed down. I don't think she's going to finish the fight similar to what Eubanks did, obviously, but I do like Corey McKenna to come in there, execute a game plan, win the fight. I like Corey McKenna by decision. Absolutely stay away from this fight. It's a weird one. I mean, we got Mike Grundy, we got Mokaev and Amirkhani. Both these guys haven't won a fight in a while. For Grundy, his last win was all the way back in 2019. And for Amirkhani, his last win was at UFC 251, beating Danny Henry by anaconda choke. But, Amirkhani's lost 3 fights since then. It's Edson Jr. Barbosa, it's Kamwilla Kirk, and it's Leron Murphy. And then for Grundy, after beating Nadir Rahmani by KO, he turned around, he lost to Movsar Evloev, which is going to happen to you, but then he lost a split decision to Lana Venata. It's a tough fight to pick. Grundy's 35, Amirkhani's 33, but man, Amirkhani's chin's just kind of gone at this point. The Shane Burgos fight, he really got touched up in that one. And yeah, he stood with Edson Barbosa for a while, but Barbosa still knocked him down twice in that fight. And Edson wasn't really just using all of his energy in that one either. It was just a weird, laid-back, somewhat approach for Edson Barbosa in that fight. And he still beat him off on Amirkhani. He almost knocked him out in 2 points in that fight. And then Amirkhani turned around against Kamwilla Kirk. He was able to land 5 takedowns, but Kirk was just doing more. I think it was just more, he was just more active in that fight against Amirkhani. In the Amirkhani-Leron Murphy fight, I didn't watch it live. I was still sleeping. It was UFC 267. It was in Abu Dhabi. But yeah, I rewatched it. Nothing happens in the first round. Amirkhani is just kind of fishing for the takedown. He gets it, and he has Leron Murphy down basically throughout that entire first round. But in the second, goes for it again. Leron Murphy, big knee, fight over. It's going to happen to you. Leron Murphy's a good striker, but Amirkhani did show in that fight that he did have some success on the ground in that fight, executing a takedown. And he got 5 takedowns in that first round. He's taking on Mike Grundy. You know what Grundy does well, right? Grundy goes for takedowns and he tries to, he took down Evloev 6 times in their fight. And could he keep Evloev down? No, but that's always the style that Grundy's going to fight. He's always looking for a takedown. He's always looking to keep the fight on the mat, like he did against Groovy Venata. He had 3 takedowns against. You're going to see the better grapplers in this fight. Grundy's not the best at shooting for takedowns. Amirkhani's really not either. But Grundy's takedown defense is pretty solid. I would say Amirkhani's is, not bad either. It's kind of a mirror match, honestly, because both these guys' striking levels just aren't very high. It's a weird fight. Again, just stay completely away from it, honestly, because Amirkhani, I don't know where this guy's at in this point of his career. Grundy's a weird guy as well. Ever so slightly, Mike Grundy by decision. The least confident pick, though, on this entire card. Here we go. It is the debut of Mohamed Mokaev taking on Cody Durden. And for Mokaev, undefeated so far as a pro, and as an amateur, he was 23-0 as an amateur, and now, of course, fighting professionally as well. He's 5-0. The guy's only 21 years old. Really good wrestling base. His striking is getting better as well. Mokaev is a very interesting add to, of course, this 125-pound division. He's taking on Cody Durden, who started his UFC run 0-2. Actually, no, 0-1-1 because he had the fight against Chris Gutierrez. He loses by decision. Then he loses to Jimmy Flick where he gets flying triangle. And then he beats Amirkhani Long in his last fight where, I mean, he kind of went crazy on the mic after the fight. But Cody Durden, despite all of that, still won the fight. He out-wrestled Amirkhani Long in that fight. And he won the fight. The problem is he going to be able to out-wrestle Mokaev? I don't know. A guy who's been fighting since, what, he was 14 years old as an amateur? I mean, Mokaev's been fighting for a while. His combined record between amateur and pro is what? I mean, 27-0? 28-0? The guy's really good, and he hasn't been touched yet. His chin's pretty good for all these fights that he's had, given a lot of these were amateur. He's fighting some guys who aren't that great, but still, Mokaev's really good. His wrestling's really good. Just the all-around game out of Mokaev should just be able to beat Cody Durden in this one. I don't think Durden's a superior grappler, and in this fighting with Mokaev, I mean, if you're gonna fight Mokaev, you're gonna have to be able to stuff the takedowns, and then you're gonna have to be able to outstrike him. The problem is Durden's not very good at striking. I mean, he's decent, but not great, and his wrestling defense is all right, but will it be able to stop the constant pressure out of Mokaev? I doubt it. Mokaev is really pumped up going into this fight, really high-level prospect right here. Again, only 21 years old, one of the youngest fighters on the entire UFC roster, and he's going to beat Cody Durden. I really think he's going to beat Durden. I think he'll beat him everywhere in this fight. I mean, it's tough to pick if he's going to get a finish or not in this one. I think he's going to, though. I think if he can just take down Durden, I think he'll be able to sub him pretty easily. So I'm going to buy into the hype right now. Muhammad Mokaev comes in there. He takes down Cody Durden in the first round. He keeps him down in the second round. More of the same, but eventually pulls off that submission in the second. Going Muhammad Mokaev in his UFC debut to submit Cody Durden in the second round. Next up at flyweight, we've got Molly McCann taking on Luana Carolina. McCann fighting back in London here, or back in England, I guess, because she lost to Robertson, Liverpool, I do believe, last time she fought in England, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I don't think she's been back since. Oh, actually, no, she beat Cachoeira in London, right? Because that was until Masvidal. Never mind. Okay, but still, McCann's back in London, I guess, for the first time since that Cachoeira fight. And for Luana Carolina, her opponent, came into the UFC with the win over Priscilla Cachoeira. Now, is Cachoeira a great UFC fighter? She's not. And she beat Ji-Yeon Kim. Apparently, she didn't win that fight. I mean, like, okay, the judges thought she won, but come on, rewatch that fight. Ji-Yeon Kim wins that fight. Never mind. Not never mind. She won the fight. Okay, moving on. Luana Carolina after that got knee barred by Ariane Lipski, and that was one of the best women's submissions I've ever seen. Lipski with that beautiful knee bar ends up tapping out Carolina in the first round. After that, Luana Carolina comes back. She beats Poliana Botelho by split decision. It's a close fight. Carolina misses weight in that one. It's not very good. Just don't go rewatch it. I thought Botelho probably won, but whatever. And then after that, Carolina comes back, beats Lupita Godinez when Godinez took that fight on literally like 3 days notice. And yeah, I mean, Carolina wins the fight. It's at 125, obviously. Godinez is a normally a straw weight. Carolina wins it by unanimous decision, not much Lupi could do in that fight, right? So Carolina just outstruck her throughout that entire fight. Godinez is just too small for the weight class, honestly, and couldn't take down Luana Carolina. Now, she's taken on Molly McCann. Molly McCann has not fought since the Brunson Till fight card. It was a fight of the night performance. It was a win over Ji-Yeon Kim. It's a good win for Molly McCann. She stands there, and like every Molly McCann fight, she's gonna come in there. She's just gonna trade. She wants to get into a brawl. She's willing to take one, to throw one, and that's every single Molly McCann fight, really. I mean, it's the story of really every fight she does have. Now, the Laura Procopio fight, she wanted to do that, but Procopio just kept taking her down at will. Tala Santos kept taking her down. The Diana Belbizia fight, when Molly McCann is the better wrestler, she's always able to dictate where the fight's gonna end up, and like the Belbizia fight, she kept it standing for the most part, and about striking her. And then the same thing can be said about the Ji-Yeon Kim fight. I mean, Ji-Yeon Kim was willing to stand there and trade with anyone, really, so that's not too big of a problem, but she's a better grappler, or better wrestler than Cachoeira, where Cachoeira couldn't take her down, so that's why she just kept striking her. Same with the Lipski fight. Really, when Molly McCann is the better grappler, she wins the fight. And she's a better wrestler than Luana Carolina. And it's not like Luana Carolina is shooting for takedowns. She's never gotten a takedown so far in a UFC run because that's just not how she fights. I think Molly McCann's going to just... It's pretty obvious how this fight's going to go. It's going to be a stand-up fight with Luana Carolina and Molly McCann. And you're not beating Molly McCann in a brawl, especially when you're not a wrestler and you're fighting in England, because the way to beat Molly McCann is to take her down and try to submit her, or just try to keep her down. Similar to when Molly McCann fought in Liverpool, her last fight in Liverpool was against Julian Robertson. Robertson just took her down, subbed her in the second round, right? Luana Carolina is not the fighter that's going to do that to Molly McCann. If Luana Carolina wants to win any fight, she's going to have to stand and strike with her opponent. Molly McCann wants to do that every single time she fights. So I really like Molly McCann to go in here, pick up a victory. It's going to be a brawl, of course, in the feet. It's every Molly McCann fight style, really, but I like Molly McCann to go in there, win a very fun unanimous decision. Very surprised Jack Shore's an underdog here, like really surprised, especially because it's in the UK. I don't know. I don't know why he's a plus 140 here, because I'm not impressed with Timur Valiev. I really never been too impressed with Timur Valiev. like, since this Trevin Jones fight, I mean, okay, that was a fight where Valiev's supposed to go in there and supposed to dominate Trevin Jones. It's Trevin Jones' first fight in the UFC. He's supposed to beat the brakes off this guy. He doesn't. I mean, he tires very quickly in the second round. Jones, big comeback, finishes him with a big overhand right. I mean, but still, Valiev's just, I don't know, he's a confusing fighter. He's a confusing fighter because he comes back, he beats Martin Day. Okay, it was a fight where, like, Martin Day's not on the level that Timur Valiev is on. Like, that's a fight that he's supposed to win, and he dominated that fight. He was a minus 420 favorite for a reason. He outstruck the guy 55-8. Just domination. He's able to land takedowns when he needed to. It was all Timur Valiev. The Honey Barcelos fight is a close fight. I think Barcelos probably should have won. Actually, I don't know. I should have won or bet a draw. I mean, it's a weird fight. It's a majority decision win for Timur Valiev over Barcelos. Barcelos knocks him down twice in that fight. The striking numbers is pretty close, but yeah, Valiev wasn't able to land a takedown on that one. He went over 6 on his takedown attempts, and he was forced to strike with Honey Barcelos, and the judges gave him the scorecard over Barcelos. Will Valiev be able to take down Jack Shore? I highly doubt it. No one's been able to do so far in the UFC. Not that many guys will try to, but yeah, no one's taken down Jack Shore so far in the UFC. Valiev has been taken down once. It was Trevin Jones. And you know what Jack Shore does really well. He's a tremendous grappler. He wants to get fights in the ground. He wants to submit his opponents. I mean, you saw that when he won the Cage Warriors Bantamweight Championship. You saw that when he came to the UFC, beat Nolan Hernandez, when he beat Aaron Phillips. Given his Aaron Phillips and Nolan Hernandez, the best UFC fighters? No. He beat Hunter Azure by split decision. Hunter Azure, I do believe, is fighting, he's fighting Icon this week? And I know he's going to some promotion, Hunter Azure. I think it might be Icon FC this week. And then most recently, Jack Shore beat Ludovic Shoyilan in his last fight, just dominating him from pillar to post. So Jack Shore, all of his fights in the UFC have been similar, though. It's been takedowns, keep his opponents down, just trying to work on the ground. Is he going to be able to do that against Valiev? I don't know, because Valiev's takedown defense is good. Now, it's not to the point where, like, Jack Shore's is, so I don't think Valiev's going to be able to take down Shore. It's a matter of, can Shore take down Valiev? Because if he can't, then you're going to get this weird scenario. Example, Colby Covington, Kamaru Usman, where you got two grapplers and two primary wrestlers striking with each other. And if that's the case, I do like Timur Valiev to beat Jack Shore on the feet. I think he is the better striker than Shore. I think Valiev's boxing is getting a lot better. You saw him fight Barcelos. He's, very, very tight when he boxes, really in close. He'll try to close the distance and outstrike his opponents. That's what he did against Barcelos. His jab's not horrible as Valiev's. And I'm just, again, Jack Shore's striking is not the major part of his game, because of course he's always trying to get fights on the ground. So that's why I see maybe why Valiev is a favorite right now. But as long as Shore's able to take down Valiev, he should be able to win, because I think he's got better jiu-jitsu. It's just a matter of the wrestling. The wrestling in this fight is going to determine the winner, because on the ground, if Shore is able to get the fight to the ground, I think he should be able to beat Valiev, right? Because I think his jiu-jitsu is better. But if Timur Valiev is able to keep this fight standing, it's not the strong suit of his game, but I think he is, he's got better boxing than Shore's got. So close fight here. It just depends on the wrestling, honestly. Ever so slightly, though, I think Jack Shore will be able to land that takedown. I do like Shore here plus money. Plus 140 is really intriguing right here from Jack Shore. I think he's going to come in here. I think he's going to beat Timur Valiev. I think it'll be a tough fight. I think it'll be a close fight for Shore. It's not going to be any easy fight for sure for him, but I think he will keep his undefeated record intact. I think he's going to go to 16-0 with the victory. I like Jack Shore to beat Timur Valiev. I think he gets it done by decision. Can someone explain to me who Jai Herbert pissed off at the UFC to deserve this again? Like, why is he fighting Ilia Topuria? Like, why is he fighting this fight? I think Jai Herbert's good. I think he is. Now, he's 33 years old, and I get if he's going to want to make a push to the championship, which I don't think Jai Herbert's making a push to the UFC championship, but if he's going to, he's going to have to start fighting fights like this. It's Ilia Topuria. Topuria is a guy who should be ranked very soon. Like, if he wins his fight against Herbert, he probably will crack the rankings. It's not like Herbert's one of these guys is an entry-level fight, and I don't think Herbert's a gatekeeper, per se, to the top 15, but like, Ilia Topuria has been very good so far in his UFC run, and you look at his wins. Youssef Zalal fight's good. He wins that fight pretty dominantly. He beats Damon Jackson, where he knocks him out in the first round, absolutely folds the guy, and now Damon Jackson, just picked up 2 straight wins, beating Pamela Kirk by arm triangle choke in the second round, just yesterday, or 2 days ago now. And then he beat Ryan Hall, did Topuria, completely beat up Ryan Hall. Hall has kept going for the Imannaris, and eventually Topuria caught him. Ground pound, fight over. Topuria stays undefeated. So the guy, of course, he's only 25 years old. He's 11-0, and now you're giving him Jai Herbert, who, what does Herbert offer to Topuria, right? Because honestly, like, Herbert's striking is good. It is. Like, he's got some solid striking. He's got power, like you saw in the Kama Worthy fight. Given his Kama Worthy the best UFC fighter, no, he's back fighting in Pittsburgh in his local promotions, I do believe. He's looking for a fight, if I saw that correctly on Twitter the other day. They're trying to get Kama Worthy a fight in his local promotion. But, I mean, you look at Herbert's 2 first fights in the UFC, though. He gets knocked out by Trinaldo. It's the stop the fight, of course, with Dan Hardy yelling at Herb Dean. And then he gets beat by Neto Moicano, where Moicano just takes him down and dominates him on the ground. So you have those 2 fights. You beat Kama Worthy, and they say, okay, go fight a guy who's in the top 15. He's undefeated, and he's one of the biggest prospects in the division. Like, good luck with that, right? I think Topuria is going to dominate Jai Herbert, and I think he gets it done wherever he wants it to be. Like, Topuria, if he wants to keep this fight standing, I think he can outbox Jai Herbert. Even though Jai Herbert's boxing is good, I still think Topuria has the power advantage, and I think he should be able to, if he really wants to win the fight that way, I think it will be tough for him, but he'll be able to get the win. And if he wants to just out-grapple Jai Herbert, I think he's going to have this fight any way he wants it on the ground. I think Topuria is able to land takedowns against Jai Herbert, who's not the best at stuffing takedowns. I think he's able to just out-grapple him. That's what Trinaldo did. That's what Mokaev did. And honestly, for being real, that's probably what Topuria is going to do as well. I don't think he's going to play too many games in the feet with Jai Herbert, considering the easiest path to victory for Ilia Topuria in this fight is through the grappling. He should be able to take down Jai Herbert and beat him at will. But I'm going to take the TKO here just because I think he will be able to land ground and pound it, and even for so this is why I like the TKO pick right here, because he can either knock him out on the feet, or if this fight doesn't end up on the ground, he's going to keep chipping away with ground and pound on the ground. So I think that's why we're going to take Topuria by TKO, just so you have either he gets him on the feet or he gets him on the ground. Obviously, I could see a submission here by Topuria, but I really like him within the distance. I like Ilia Topuria to beat Jai Herbert. I think he gets it done with a first round TKO finish. I think it will be through the ground and pound, but I think it will be a takedown for Topuria and then domination on the ground. We like Topuria to stay undefeated with a first round TKO. Here we go, opening up the main card. We've got Nikita Krylov taking on Paul Craig. And for Paul Craig, coming off that win over Jamal Hill, which keeps looking better because you look at Jamal Hill just knocking out, of course, Johnny Walker in a UFC main event. Oh, by the way, before that, he knocked out Jimmy Crute in the first round. Jamal Hill has got a huge hype train attached to his name right now. But oh, by the way, who beat Jamal Hill in his last fight? It's Paul Craig. And Craig is on a run right now in the UFC. He's got 4 straight wins, or a 5-fight unbeaten streak if you count the split draw against Shogun Rua in a fight that he probably should have won. But he avenged the Rua win by knocking him out or TKOing him in the second round. By the way, Rua is going to go fight OSP in a month. Who asked for that? I didn't, but okay, that fight's going to be happening on the same night as Cowboy and Joe Lazone. But Craig, beat Antigulov, beat Rua, and now beat Jamal Hill, where, I guess it was a TKO finish, right? Even though Hill, I don't know what happened to Hill's arm. It was crazy, though. Paul Craig, I guess, breaks his arm, even though Dana said it wasn't broken. I don't know what happened. But again, Craig wins the fight. TKO submission, whatever way you want to have it. He beat Jamal Hill basically due to injury because of the submission that Paul Craig did pull off in that fight, the triangle arm bar. Paul Craig, though, is one of these guys in MMA, and one of the few guys left that will seriously pull guard in his fights. Paul Craig is one of the last guys who still do this because his jiu-jitsu is that good, and because he just wants fights in the ground. He just wants to, he'll accept being on his back. He'll accept the ground and pound because he thinks he can reverse his opponent. He thinks he can work his transitions, and he thinks he can get back on top in the fight, or just threaten off his back. Like, oh, by the way, he did against the guy who just won in the main event last week against Magomed Ankalaev. Ankalaev was winning the fight until Paul Craig threw up a triangle choke with about, a minute left and won the fight with the second left on the clock. He tapped out Magomed Ankalaev. And Magomed Ankalaev is now calling for a title shot with that boring-ass win over Thiago Santos. I don't know what to do with Ankalaev. It's probably Anthony Smith next. And am I excited for that fight? Hell to the no. But, Paul Craig beat Magomed Ankalaev in the UFC, and that's something to note. And now he lost to, Jimmy Crute after that, where he got subbed. But still, he came back, beat Nzejuku, lost to Menafield, where he got knocked out in 3 minutes, beat Vinicius Mokaev, had the draw against Tua, beat Antigulov, Rua, and then Hill after that. Now he's taking on Nikita Krylov, and we haven't seen Nikita Krylov since his fight against, who else? Magomed Ankalaev. And Magomed Ankalaev in that fight was able to land more takedowns than Krylov. He was able to control the fight on the ground. He was able to outstrike Krylov in that fight as well. Was the most entertaining fight? It was not, but still, of course, Ankalaev won. But Nikita Krylov is going to try to take down every single opponent he does face. It doesn't matter if it's a guy like Magomed Ankalaev who's got really good sambo and really good jiu-jitsu, or sambo and wrestling. It doesn't matter if it's a guy like Glover Teixeira, who's literally the world champion right now because of his jiu-jitsu. Nikita Krylov tried to take down Glover Teixeira. He tried it 4 times. He landed 2 of them. And oh, by the way, he had a split decision loss over Glover Teixeira. It was a close fight over in Vancouver, I believe Gaethje and Cowboy was. It was a close fight. Teixeira wins, but that just shows you how good Krylov is with his wrestling and with his top pressure. And same can be said about the Johnny Walker fight. He just took down Johnny Walker and kept Johnny Walker down in that empty arena crowd fight card in Brasilia back in 2020, right before the pandemic. So Krylov, we know what he does well. He's not much of a striker. Krylov's trying to come into fights and take guys down, keep him down, and work his top pressure. But you know what Paul Craig does well? Paul Craig is accepting, and he wants to be on his back in his fights because he wants to be on the ground. So I don't think you see much of a striking fight because honestly, I think both guys are going to be willing to meet in the middle here. Paul Craig wants to be on the ground. He wants to be on his back. I think he's going to accept a takedown. I think Nikita Krylov will probably attempt a takedown. Paul Craig, like a Mackenzie Durden, is just going to fall with him. And there you go. There's the game from right there. It's can Nikita Krylov apply the top pressure, work his ground and pound, advance positioning, and look for a submission? Or will it be, okay, Paul Craig has got the fight on his back, and now what is he going to do with it? Is he going to trap Krylov in something? That's yet to be seen. I'm surprised, again, Craig's an underdog in this fight, similar to the Jack Shore fight. I'm surprised they're giving us Paul Craig right now at plus money. I like Paul Craig in this fight. I like him by submission. I think Krylov's going to shoot a takedown in the first round. I think Craig's going to catch him in something. So I like Scotland's own Paul Craig to come in here. I think Krylov, again, is just going to make a mistake on the ground after he shoots him for a takedown. Again, Paul Craig is one of these guys in MMA. He wants to be on his back. He will pull guards sometimes. He's fine with being on the ground with Nikita Krylov. I like Paul Craig to beat this fight or win this fight over Nikita Krylov. He'll get it done by first round submission. Heavyweight fight now between Shamil Abdurakhimov and Sergey Pavlovich. For Pavlovich, he hasn't fought in a while. His last fight was all the way back in 2019. It was a win over Maurice Green where he picks up the knockout win. Yeah, Ben Askren's fought in the UFC more recently than Pavlovich, so that tells you something, right? But he does beat Maurice Green in that fight. Before that, beats Marcelo Gome by knockout in the first round. That's back in 2019 in March of that year, or in April, excuse me. That's in St. Petersburg, Russia on the Overeem and Oleinik card. And then, of course, Pavlovich comes in the UFC. It's fighting against Alistair Overeem in a fight where Pavlovich was the favorite because he's coming over from Fight Nights Global. He hadn't fought in a year up to that point, but still, he fought a lot in Fight Nights Global. I believe he was their heavyweight champion at the time, too. And then Alistair Overeem beats him. I mean, Pavlovich, though, had some hype going into that fight against Overeem. He just beat Baby Fedor, and, still, though, Overeem came in there. I believe, Overeem took him down, then finished him on the ground afterwards. Still, though, it was just something. It was a levels fight, per se, right? Overeem was just better than Pavlovich on that night, and probably Overeem's still better than Pavlovich, just showing you where the heavyweight division is at right now. Now, Shamil Abdurakhimov is still ranked at heavyweight. He's 40 years old, from Russia. He's still ranked. And he hasn't won a fight since April of 2019, and it was against Marcin Tybura, which actually isn't a horrible win, and that was on the same card where Sergey Pavlovich went and beat Marcelo Gome. But since then, Abdurakhimov has had a million fights. It's canceled. You can look at his record on Tapology. So after the Tybura fight, he fights Curtis Blades in Abu Dhabi. He loses. Blades beats him with ground and pound in the second round. It's a dominant wrestling performance for Curtis Blades. Okay, so Abdurakhimov, is booked against Cyril Gane a year later. Fight's canceled with a Gane injury. Okay, that's fine. Then they book it again for 6 months later. Abdurakhimov has to withdraw. Then they book him against Augusto Sakai. That fight's rescheduled for some reason. Then they book him against Chris Dawkins. Fight's pushed back for some reason. Then they book him again for Dawkins. Fight's pushed back because Abdurakhimov has COVID. And they finally do the fight against Chris Dawkins. He gets knocked down in the second round. Dawkins basically knocks him out twice in that fight. He wins. They book him against Tom Aspinall, do the UFC with Abdurakhimov. Aspinall, of course, gets pushed to the main event. So now you have this fight with Abdurakhimov and Pavlovich. Sergey Pavlovich should be able to beat Abdurakhimov. I just don't think Abdurakhimov is that good at this point in his career. He's 40 years old. He's old. Yes, he can still throw, and he's got some heavy power, but other than that, he just doesn't got much left in the tank, I do believe. He's been knocked out 3 times in the UFC. Most recently, his last 2 fights, he got finished. He took a beating by Curtis Blades. Blades was nasty with those elbows on top, and then Chris Dawkins was just dominant with the heavy hands in his win over Abdurakhimov. I think Pavlovich will probably be able to land that big blow in the first round. I think he'll be able to put down Abdurakhimov pretty quickly, just like his other 2 wins in the UFC. I like Sergey Pavlovich to come back, win this fight by first round knockout. Am I all that confident in it? Not really, just because Abdurakhimov could be sneaky good in this fight, just considering how Pavlovich has been away for a while, but still, ever so slightly, we're going with Sergey Pavlovich to win this fight. I think he gets it done by first round knockout. So Gunnar Nelson's back. It's been a while. It's been 3 years since we've seen Gunnar Nelson in the UFC, and his last fight was in Copenhagen, Denmark. It was against Gilbert Burns. He lost by unanimous decision. But if you look at Gunnar Nelson's UFC run, my goodness, is it tough. Like, this guy's fought the best in the UFC. Well, he's beat some good fighters, but really, you look at the man's losses. Let's go through the losses that Gunnar Nelson suffered in the UFC. He's had some wins. I mean, don't get me wrong. The guy's, 8-5 in the UFC? Let's go through the 5 losses. The first one, it's a main event spot in Stockholm, Sweden. He goes all 25 minutes against Rick Story. He loses by split decision, but you got to think of it at the time. Rick Story was a solid UFC fighter at one point in time. He was coming off a split decision loss to Kelvin Gastelum, but I mean, that was on Rick Story's kind of run, and then he got knocked out by Cowboy and then got let go by the promotion. But there was a place in time where Rick Story was a big deal. That's fine. Gunnar Nelson comes back, he beats Brandon Thatch. Then he loses to Damian Maia. He loses a unanimous decision. It's going to happen to you. Damian Maia is one of the elite, UFC 194, whatever. Gunnar Nelson turns back, he wins 2 fights afterwards. He gets Santiago Ponzinibbio in Scotland, and he gets knocked out in the first round. Okay, then he beats Alex Oliveira. Cool. Turns around against Leon Edwards, loses a very close split decision fight with Leon Edwards. Actually, though, I mean, Edwards won the fight. Nelson was only in that fight because of his wrestling. Still, though, Gunnar Nelson loses to Leon Edwards by split decision, and then loses to Gilbert Burns in his last fight. Burns was the superior grappler, and it allowed Burns to just take over that fight in Denmark. But you look at Nelson's losses in the UFC, it's Gilbert Burns, Leon Edwards, Damian Maia, Santiago Ponzinibbio, Rick Story. Some very good fighters. Takashi Sato, I think this fight's set up for Gunnar Nelson, by the way, because Takashi Sato, he's got some good striking. Like we've seen in his win over Ben Saunders, he knocks him out in the first round. The second round, then he knocked out Jason Witt in the first round. That's cool and all from Takashi Sato, but how do you lose his 2 fights in the UFC? Because we know Sato's got good striking, but his wrestling and his grappling isn't great. Bilal Muhammad takes him down at will, subs him in the third round. Miguel Baeza, who's not known for his jiu-jitsu, during a Mike Tyson fight, took down Takashi Sato in a co-main event and subbed him with an arm triangle in the second round. If that's happened to you, if that's gonna happen to you by Miguel Baeza, who's primarily a striker, what's gonna happen to you when you go fight Gunnar Nelson? Because that's all Gunnar Nelson's gonna do is gonna go in there. He's gonna try to get takedowns. He's just gonna try to submit his opponent. And Gunnar Nelson was supposed to be taking on Claudio Silva. Silva had to pull out. Sato's taking this one somewhat short notice. Gunnar Nelson's gonna execute the game plan right here, take down Takashi Sato at will, and he's gonna sub him pretty quickly. I don't know how long Sato's gonna be able to go with Gunnar Nelson because again, that's all Nelson does. As long as Nelson doesn't get caught with a big bomb like Jason Witt did against Takashi Sato, it's gonna be free sailing for Gunnar Nelson in this fight. I know he's been off for 3 years, true. But Takashi Sato hasn't fought in over a year as well. He hasn't fought since 2020. This is just gonna be Gunnar Nelson takedown. Submission right off the bat. I think it's a good fight for Gunnar Nelson to get back into the UFC, get back into the win column after losing to 2 very elite fighters, Leon Edwards and Gilbert Burns. I like Gunnar Nelson beat Takashi Sato. I think he's going to get it done in the first round by submission. The return of Paddy the Baddy taking on Kazula Vargas. The UFC knows what they're doing. Okay, they know what they're doing in this fight. Kazula Vargas is not beating Paddy Pimblett. The only way he does is if he catches Paddy Pimblett in the first round. And Paddy Pimblett, in every one of his UFC fights, he's going to be susceptible of this. It's going to be susceptible of getting hit. Like, Paddy the Baddy will be getting hit in every single fight he's in. Just because he leaves his head up every single time he throws. And it's concerning, because Luigi Venturini almost knocked him out. And the Italian Stallion is not the greatest. Yeah, he hits hard, but that was a fight where we thought Paddy the Baddy was just going to steamroll him. I mean, you know, Paddy the Baddy dealt with some adversity in that fight. He came back and he ended up winning, which is cool, but it was a closer fight against Luigi Venturini than we hoped with Paddy the Baddy and Venturini. Now, against Kazula Vargas, as long as Paddy just doesn't get hit in the first round, he should be fine. Like, I think Vargas is going to come out here, and this is my prediction, obviously, in this one. I think Vargas is going to come out here, he's going to throw really quickly in the first round and just try to land a bomb against Paddy Pimblett and try to get Paddy to engage into a fight with him to a point where, you know, they're just throwing back and forth. Kind of like the Venturini fight, because I think Vargas does hit a little bit harder than Venturini does, but I mean, Kazula Vargas' ground game is not great. I mean, he gets taken down a lot, and Paddy Pimblett has got really good jiu-jitsu. Like, yeah, you might be high on his win over Venturini, where, yeah, he showed he's got power, he can knock out Vargas, or knock out Venturini, and yes, he can, you know, take a punch as well. That's cool and all, but if Paddy Pimblett wants to have the most success in this fight, and the best way to win this fight, it's going to be through the ground. Because Paddy Pimblett, I think, has got a clear grappling advantage over Kazula Vargas. Because Vargas, he got taken down 3 times by Alex de Silva, and that's how he lost to Alex de Silva. De Silva held him down for 12 minutes in their fight in Uruguay on the Shevchenko-Carmouche card. Brock Weaver and Vargas was only like 4 minutes. And then you look at Vargas' fight against Rong Zhu. Yeah, he beats Rong Zhu, but still, Zhu was able to land 3 takedowns in that one. If Paddy Pimblett's able to land 3 takedowns against Kazula Vargas, I don't think Vargas is still in the fight. I think it's probably going to be over because I think Paddy Pimblett's going to be able to go there and then get submissions and eventually finish Vargas on the ground. On the feet, I think it's competitive. I think Pimblett could definitely finish Kazula Vargas on the feet, don't get me wrong. Like, yeah, Vargas hits hard. He's got some really nice power. And, you know, that big head kick knockout in Combate to punch his ticket in the UFC was huge. So I think, like, yeah, I think Pimblett could beat him on the feet, but I don't think he should because Vargas is dangerous on the feet and can't land a bomb and put away Paddy Pimblett. You know, he could put away Paddy Pimblett on the feet. On the ground, though, it's all Paddy the Baddy. Like, Paddy the Baddy's got, a clear advantage on the ground. If Kazula Vargas was taken down at will by Alex de Silva and kept down by Alex de Silva for 12 minutes in a fight, Paddy Pimblett should be able to do the same, and I think Paddy Pimblett's gonna be able to finish Kazula Vargas on the ground, and I don't think it's gonna take that long. I really think it's going to be a huge victory for Paddy Pimblett in front of the home crowd, of course, in London. I like Paddy Pimblett here on his home turf to come in there, pick up a win over Krylov Vargas. It'll be a first-round submission for Paddy Pimblett, really hyping up the crowd and really, of course, adding more fans to that hype train of the baddie going Paddy Pimblett first-round sub. Really good fight here at featherweight. We've got Arnold Allen, the undefeated, of course, featherweight here. He's 8-0 in the UFC, or undefeated in the UFC. Yeah, it does have one pro loss. But taking on Dan Hooker, I don't know if I like Dan Hooker going back down to 145. I really don't, and especially against Arnold Allen, because Allen pushes a pace, man. He really does. If it's through the grappling, if it's through the striking, Arnold Allen knows what he's doing. Like, he's a very good fighter. Like, with the exception of the Mads Burnell fight, Arnold Allen's been untouchable so far in the UFC. In the Mads Burnell fight, if you missed it, of course, Mads Burnell just fought Adam Borks in Bellator. He lost the fight in the main event in St. Louis last week, but Arnold Allen was losing to Mads Burnell. Basically, he was down 2-0, and in the third round, Arnold Allen throws up a Hail Mary guillotine and finishes Mads Burnell in the third round. He's still perfect so far in the UFC, don't get me wrong. But since then, he beat Gilbert Melendez, where he absolutely dominated Melendez. He dominated Nick Lentz on the feet, and then he dominated Sodiq Yusuff. Actually, didn't dominate Sodiq Yusuff, because technically Yusuff did outstrike Allen in that fight, but Allen was, very good with his takedowns. Eventually knocked down Sodiq Yusuff. I do believe it was in the third round, if I'm not mistaken, where he landed the knockdown against Yusuff. The guy's a good striker, man. He's a good striker who's got good wrestling to complement it as well. Arnold Allen's good. Arnold Allen is very good. I believe the knockdown actually of Yusuff was in the second, because I think Sodiq Yusuff won the third round. So I think it was the second round where Allen lands a knockdown. Allen's tank isn't the greatest. His gas tank's not the best, like you saw in the Yusuff fight, but he was kind of just using all of his stamina in the first two rounds, and eventually, of course, he was up 2-0, and he beat Sodiq Yusuff 29-28. If we're talking about gas tanks, though, I'm concerned about Dan Hooker going down to 145, because the guy's been fighting at 55 for a while. And something that Dan Hooker was known for at 155 was his gas tank. He was able to go, long fights with Dustin Poirier, Paul Felder. Ali Quinty was fresh at the end of that fight. The Nasrat Haqparast fight, he was, able to go a full 15 minutes against him and looked very good in those 15 minutes. I'm concerned about him going down to 145 again, though. I mean, when's the last time he fought 145? It was a while ago, right? It's when he lost to Jason Knight, I believe, on the Whitaker-Brunson card. I mean, he's been at lightweight for a while now. He's had he's had a lot of success at 155. And I know he's hasn't had the most success recently, but look at the guys he's lost to at 55. It's Poirier, Chandler, and Makhachev. Poirier's former world champion. Chandler's former world champion at Bellator. Makhachev looks like he's on the way to the championship, or at least a title shot next if he can beat Beneil Dariush. He's losing to the top guys in 155, which nothing to be ashamed of there. And now he's going down to 45, and I think it's just going to really affect his gas tank with Dan Hooker, because I think that's one of the things. I'll bring up Colby Covington, for example. I mean, a lot of people maybe I'll be included in this too, but I've always wanted to see Colby Covington try to go down to 155. But I get the reason why he doesn't do it. It's because his gas tank wouldn't be as good down there, because that's what Colby's so good at. It's his gas tank, his cardio. He can go all day at 170. If he was at 155, he'd have to cut all that weight, and his chin wouldn't be as great like it is now. It would just be tougher on Colby, his whole fight style. If you change his fight style if he went down to 55. And it's not like Dan Hooker's going to have to change his entire fight style going down 10 pounds, but you just got to worry about his cardio going into this fight with Arnold Allen, who is going to be there for 3 rounds. And yes, maybe he does fall off a little bit in the third round, but, if Allen's winning the first 2 rounds, what is Hooker going to be like in the third, down 2 rounds? And yes, it gets a tired Arnold Allen, but what if Hooker's tired as well going in that third round? It makes it tough to pick Dan Hooker in this fight. And yeah, Hooker's a very slight favorite, but it's hard to pick against Arnold Allen because Allen's been so good recently. The wrestling's been really good, and now I know Hooker's takedown defense is pretty solid. I know he got taken down immediately by Makhachev, which is going to happen to you, but Hooker was able to take down Dustin Poirier. He was able to take down Haqparast at will. He's good down there, but is he able to keep that up for 3 rounds? I just don't know. I think it's a pretty even matchup. It honestly is, but I'm just concerned with Hooker, a guy who was very lean at 155. Cutting 10 extra pounds, getting down to 145, a division that he hasn't been at in about 6 years. It's very concerning considering Dan Hooker's 32? I mean, still good point in his career, but especially when you haven't done this since you're 26 years old. I like Arnold Allen to win this fight. I think he gets it done by decision. I think it's one of the closer fights of this entire card. Obviously, I think there's a serious chance that Dan Hooker wins this fight, reestablishes himself at 145 as one of the top contenders down there. Definitely with the win, Dan Hooker can put himself right back into title contention, of course, at featherweight, but I think Allen wins. He picks up the win, book him against Josh Emmett next. The winner of that fight fights the winner of Yair Rodriguez and Brian Ortega, and the winner of that gets a title shot. I think Allen's probably 3 fights away from the belt. This is the first of 3, and we like Arnold Allen to stay undefeated in the UFC with a decision victory over Dan the Hangman Hooker. Here we go, a very fun main event here. because Tom Aspinall is one of the biggest, he is the biggest prospect at heavyweight right now. Number 11 in the world, taking on number 6 Alexander Volkov. It's a tough fight for Aspinall, though. It truly is. Is it too much too soon? Possibly. Like, honestly, it might be, because Volkov is still one of these guys. He is like the gatekeeper to the top 5, I would say. He's number 6. He's the gatekeeper to the top 5, though, because if you could beat Alexander Volkov, you're ready for the top 5 guys. And for Tom Aspinall, if he wins this fight, they're probably booking him against Derek Lewis next. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what they do after this, if Aspinall wins. For Volkov, who knows? We'll get into that maybe later. But I mean, Aspinall really, it's a huge fight for him. If he beats Volkov, he's not fighting, no disrespect to Sergey Spivak and Andrei Arlovsky, but he's not fighting those guys anymore, right? He's fighting only the elite of the elite. Kind of like that spot where Tai Tuivasa is in now, right? I mean, Tuivasa beats Derek Lewis. You can only fight the elite guys at this point now. You're not, you can't dip down and fight Shamil Abdurakhimov anymore. I mean, it's a tough fight for Tom Aspinall. And if he wins, obviously, he's going to go back down to the top 15, those guys in the 20 to 10 range, and, probably beat a lot of those guys down there, but man, it is a tough ask for Tom Aspinall to come in here and beat Alexander Volkov, because Alexander Volkov, I mean, he's still so solid, right? I mean, you look at his fights so far in the UFC, with the exception of the Curtis Blades fight, no one's been able to take him down. Given, does anyone want to take down Volkov? Because not really, because they think they can just outstrike him. But I mean, Volkov's fights, like Topuria tried to take him down 16 times, you couldn't do it once. That's concerning if you're Tom Aspinall, because yeah, Tom Aspinall's got striking, but Aspinall's a good grappler too and good wrestler. If he can't take down Alexander Volkov, I'm afraid he's just going to get picked apart in the feet. Because I think Aspinall's boxing's good, right? I mean, obviously, when you spar boxing with Tyson Fury, I mean, you got to be good, right, with your hands, obviously. So there's that, but I'm just concerned with the kickboxing that Volkov and the front kicks that he throws, like the kick they landed on Walt Harris, which was, really perfectly placed body kick right there. But I'm just concerned that Aspinall might not be able to, deal with some of the range Volkov will throw at him, even though Aspinall, I mean, he's only giving up 3 inches in reach against Volkov. I mean, Volkov's got 81-inch reach, and then Aspinall's got a 78-inch reach. Because Aspinall's big, he's 6'5", Volkov's 6'7". I mean, these are 2 big heavyweights. But I'm just concerned that Volkov's striking is just better at this point than Aspinall's is. Because Aspinall, he's had some fights, but he's only a 13. Drago has had 43. I mean, Volkov's been fighting for a while. And that's what I'm just concerned about with Aspinall. Because if he's not able to take down Alexander Volkov, then you're stuck in the striking fight with Volkov that a lot of guys get in. And if you can't, land a bomb on him and knock him out, it's trouble. And Volkov got outstruck for 5 rounds against Ciryl Gane. I made an entire video about why Ciryl Gane is the greatest striker in UFC heavyweight history, and I stand by that statement. I don't care you lost to Francis Ngannou, because what happened in that fight, what did we learn, is that Gane's a better striker than Ngannou. He outstruck Ngannou for the first 2 rounds to the point where Ngannou had to resort to wrestling in the last 3 to beat Ciryl Gane. And now, is Ciryl Gane the most well-rounded heavyweight ever? No, he's not, because Ngannou was able to take him down and keep him down. That's, by the way, if Gane didn't pull for a damn heel hook in the 5th round, he would have won the fight anyway. I mean, if Ferdinand Lopez didn't tell him, oh, you're down 3-1, you need to finish, Gane probably wins that fight. He wins the 5th round, he probably just stays on top, but that's besides the point. What we did learn in that fight is that Ciryl Gane's still a very good striker. Again, I don't care Ngannou had 2 torn ACLs or whatnot, or 2 broken or torn knees. Still, Gane outstruck him on the feet, and still, Ciryl Gane is the best heavyweight striker we've seen to date, and probably will be the best heavyweight striker we see for a while, because I'll play spoiler for you right here. If he fights Tai Tuivasa is getting beaten to a pulp on the feet by Ciryl Gane. He's not going to be able to touch Gane on the feet, right? If Ngannou can touch Gane, Tuivasa's not going to have a chance in that fight. Anyways, this is going back to the Volkov-Gane fight. There's no shame in losing a 5-round striking affair to Ciryl Gane. I mean, hell, one judge gave Volkov a round in that fight, which means something, because that's how good Ciryl Gane is on the feet. He dominated Alistair Overeem, where he just broke Overeem's nose and just all went downhill after that for Overeem. We talked about the Harris fight earlier. Perfectly placed kick to the body. He lost to Curtis Blades, where Blades just took him down all the damn time. I mean, what? We got 14 takedowns for Blades. Blades was a dead man walking, though, in the 5th round, but still, he ended up landing 14 takedowns, 20 minutes of control. Blades almost killed himself doing that fight because he was so tired at the end of it, but still, good one for Blades, and he's been really the only guy that's been able to out-wrestle Volkov. And the other loss for Volkov in the UFC is Derek Lewis, a fight that he was winning for 4 minutes and 50 seconds until, there's a big bomb by Derek Lewis. Fight over. One of the greatest knockouts you're going to see. Tremendous comeback. Anyways, I'm just concerned if Aspinall isn't able to land a takedown, like Marcin Tybura went 0 for 16, and he's not able to one-shot knock out Volkov, then I'm scared that he's just going to get picked apart, and he's going to continuously get picked apart throughout this entire fight. That's where I'm scared with Aspinall in this fight. If he is able to land a takedown, though, it implements a new game into this fight and a different style there that, I mean, again, Aspinall can mix in the takedowns, he can mix in the striking, and then you got a well-balanced game that can really offer a lot of Alexander Volkov and make it tough for Volkov to beat Aspinall. And of course, if you're back in Aspinall, that's what you're hoping for. But if if you think Volkov's gonna win this fight, you think he can stuff this takedown, if you think that the 265-pound Alexander Volkov, the big guy that's coming in there, he's 6'7", 265 now, that Volkov, he's a real heavyweight now. You think that guy can keep the fight on the feet, you don't think Aspinall can drag him to the ground, and then on the feet, or you can't drag him to the ground, yeah. And when you get on the feet, you think Volkov is able to out-kickbox him. It's a super close fight to pick, man. This and the co-main event are two very tough fights to pick. Honestly, this one can go either way. Ever so slightly, though, we're going with Tom Aspinall. I'm riding the hype train here. I picked Aspinall in every fight he's been in so far in the UFC, and I think he's going to win again. I think he will be able to land some takedowns in this fight. I don't think he's going to be able to land every single one of them, obviously, but I think as soon as Aspinall lands that first takedown, it makes Volkov start worrying about the wrestling, and then eventually Aspinall can work back to the head and work all of that and incorporate more into his striking game. So that's why I like Tom Aspinall to beat Alexander Volkov in our main event, and I think he gets it done by KO, and I think he gets it done in the second round. I think the first round will be huge for Aspinall. Landing a takedown in that first round, I think Volkov will probably pop back up to his feet, but then Aspinall works his boxing, and then in the second round, I think he's going to fake for a takedown, work back up top, work the body some, and I think Tom Aspinall is going to get the finish late in the second round. Winning in London, it's going to be a huge coming out party for Tom Aspinall. He's going to pick up the win, and they're going to book him against Derek Lewis next in a Fight Night main event, which will be absolute bonkers. But yeah, for now, I'm going with Tom Aspinall to beat Alexander Volkov in the main event. It could go either way. I would not be surprised, though, honestly, if Drago wins. Like, seriously, if Drago wins, I would not surprise me in the slightest. But we are going ever so slightly with Tom Aspinall to stay undefeated in the UFC with a second-round KO finish over Drago Alexander Volkov. And folks, thank you all for watching this UFC London preview and predictions video here, of course, in the main event, Alexander Volkov and Tom Aspinall. If you have not yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video. We'll be back next week from Columbus, Ohio, the Nationwide Arena. Curtis Blades, Chris Dawkins in the main event, back-to-back heavyweight main events. So be on the lookout for that video next week. But again, folks, thank you all for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. And Mamba forever.